Hello, my name is Joseph Flack, and I am now going to demonstrate everything that I worked on revision 24 of Milestone 1 game. So the very first thing that I worked on was the game camera. So as the game camera, I want to face the player avatar so I can follow their movements and give the player an isometric view. So the completion criteria for this was that the camera should face the player avatar, it should follow the player avatar, and that the camera should wait until the player has left a dead zone in order to move. So if you see here, the camera is facing that player avatar. I can move in either direction in the y-axis, and until I reach the dead zone, the camera won't follow me. And it's the same with the x-axis. And that is that story complete. The next line of work for me was the metrics level. So the story for that one was as the game. I want a metrics level so that measurable data from within the game can be tested and demonstrated. And the completion criteria for this area was that it has an area within the level for player metrics, which is here. It has an area within the level for interactable/destructible metrics, which is down here. And it has an area for object metrics and an area for level metrics. And the last story that I worked on was the dash mechanic for the player. Story for that one, as the player, I want to be able to dash out of harm's way so that I can avoid enemy attacks and environmental traps within the level. So the completion criteria for this one needs to have a button assigned to activate it, needs to track the player's forward-facing direction, needs to launch the player avatar in the forward-facing direction, needs a sound effect to activate on input, and it needs a visual effect to activate on input, as well as it needs a forward-facing indication of the player's dashing path. So, showing this one complete, it needs a button to activate. If you see down here on the bottom, the space button is our dash activation. It needs to track the player's forward-facing direction. Well, if I press that space button, we take care of a few of these completion criteria at once. So, pressing and holding the space button, I have a forward-facing indication of the player's dashing path, which is the visual effect for the input. And it needs a sound effect when I activate it, and it needs to launch the player in the forward-facing direction. So when I let go of the space button, another visual effect is played on the other input. Sound effect is played, and it launches the player avatar in the forward-facing direction.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Fink, programmer and level designer with Team Ragamuffin. We're going to go through our sprint review on the storylines that I happen to work on. My first story is RG1. As the player avatar, I would like to be able to traverse the level so I can exit it. Alright, let's go over to our Jira. Open the Capstone EXE in my build folder. Okay. So I can possess the player. I can traverse the level. And as the story is I can take control of the character and there we go. So I can exit the level. So as the story, I hit the mark. Now let's go ahead and check the completion criteria. Alright, for the completion criteria, activated via input, which on the bottom left of the screen, you can tell that via the input of the WASD I was able to. Now let's go check the can move left, Can move right, can move up, can move down. Movement stops once input stops. Plays a walking animation while moving. Plays a walking sound effect while moving. Movement sound stops once input stops. Animation stops once movement stops. Well, let's head over to the Capstone EXE and check that out. Alright. So, again, activated via input from the player. I can move left, I can move right, I can move up, I can move down. Once I stop, the player stops. Walking animation while the player is moving. Walking sound as the player is walking. And both of it stops when I stop. Alright. I believe that the completion criteria, I met that. Now let's go to RG28. As a player, I want to be able to attack with my weapon so that I can destroy destructibles and enemies. Okay? Sounds easy enough. Let's go over to the Capstone EXE again in my builds. Alright. So, weapon is my fist. Let's go and see if we can destroy a destructible first. Door. Destructible door. There we go. Boom. My door's gone. Alright, so I was able to destroy a door. Let's go find us an enemy. Let's see if I can kill an enemy. Oh, there's an enemy right there with the face. Alright. And I'm able to kill enemies. Okay. Let's take a look at our story again. Now the completion criteria was player input, attack animation, attack sound, and attack visual effect. Attack visual effect. Let's go ahead and make sure I met all that completion criteria. Back in again on the EXE. Alright, so player input. Oh, sorry. Player input, clicking the mouse. Okay. Now attack animation, which there is. Attack sound effect, which there is. And attack visual effect. Alright. Looks clean and clear cut to me. Alright, let's head on over to our stories again. RG29. As the enemy spawner, I want to produce enemies in a random location around me until I am destroyed, causing the player to slow down progression through a playable space. Okay, let's see if I can encapsulate that. Back over to the EXE for the Ragamuffin. Alright, our enemy was over here. Hey, you, with the face. He did spawn. And he would be slowing down my progression. Go kill him real quick. Alright, I'm gonna see if another one spawns. Yep, another one spawned. There we go. Let's see if I can get him to spawn. So he spawned right here. Let's see if I can get another one to spawn in a different spot.
Hey, you.
And he spawns in a different spot. Oh, and then I died. So I think I encapsulated the as enemy spawner. I want to produce enemies in random locations around me until I am destroyed, causing the player to slow down progression throughout the playable space. Actually, let's give it another shot. Now, mind you, it was like about 4 or 5 seconds if I didn't destroy it
with the face
for it to produce another enemy. So let's go ahead and destroy that. Oh, not cool. It's destroyed. So about 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Nope. No more enemies. As soon as they got destroyed. Alright. Let's go back to our story. Alright. Our story. So as the spawner, I want to produce enemies in random locations around me until I'm destroyed. So when I eliminated the player, or when I eliminated the enemy, I was able to kill the enemy, and yet it still spawned enemies in random locations. Then I destroyed the enemy, and then destroyed the spawner, and then it didn't spawn anymore. Now, encapsulating that, it would cause the player to slow down progression throughout the playable space. Now, let's go through the completion criteria. Needs a static mesh, needs a sound effect when spawning enemies, needs a sound effect when being destroyed, needs a death animation, needs a spawning animation, needs to spawn base enemy avatar. Okay, let's head over to our Jira again. Or not our Jira. Our Perforce. There we go. EXE, open that up again. Alright. So, it needs a static mesh. Start with that. Our spotter has a static mesh with the face. It is a cylinder static mesh. Okay. It has a sound effect when they spawn. So let me go ahead and let's listen for the sound effect when they spawn. When enemy spawn.
Hey, you with the face.
There was a sound effect. And there was a spawning animation of a portal. Let's see if we can see it again.
Hey, you.
There's the portal. And the enemy has a death animation. The spawner,
Oh, not cool.
has a sound and an animation when destroyed. And it spawned the base enemy that we have. So I believe the completion criteria was met there. Let's go to the next one. RG30. As a base enemy avatar, I want to exist so I can interact with the player character. Oh, sorry. Okay. As a base enemy avatar, I want to exist so I can interact with the player character. Okay. Alright. So, let's see if we know we have the enemy, right? We know it can interact with the player character. I've shown that already. It can exist in the world. It has a static mesh. It has an idle animation, a walk-in animation, and a death animation. So let's actually go over here and I want to check without a doubt. Let's go up here, see if I have just a chilling enemy here, that's just sitting. Oh, negative. That is not there. Let's go. Alright, so let's see if I can see the enemy.
Hey, you.
Okay, so he
Face.
sees me. Let's see if we can move away. So we did reach some of those. It exists in the world.
Hey,
Has
you.
stab and mash.
Face.
Had an idle animation. Had a walking animation. And of course it has the death. Let's see if I can just stand like right here and maybe he won't catch me. Okay. There, and he's
Hey,
idling.
you. With the face.
Well, he was idling up until he picked me up. So I believe I reached all the completion criteria on that one. Now let's go to my next story. Alright. RG31. As the enemy avatar, I want to traverse the level and to chase the player avatar. We have seen this. The enemy moves around the level. The enemy chases the player avatar, plays a walking animation while moving, stops walking animation when stopped, which it does. The walking sound effect starts when moving, which is the animation of the oh yeah. And the walking sound effect does stop when the player stops moving. So I know for a fact we've done this one. But, of course, let's go in, do it again. EXE. Let's see if I can get him to follow me out. I'm gonna have to get him to spawn in here. So let's check that completion criteria here.
Hey,
As the
you.
enemy
With the face.
moves up the level, he chases me down. Okay. Let's get another one to spawn in after this.
Hey, you.
Okay.
With the face.
See if I can get him. And he stops. He goes back to his original location. The sound effect of the oh yeah stops when he stops. So I believe all the completion criteria is met there. Alright, to my next story. RG40. Alright, as the avatar I want to exist so that I can represent any character in the game. Which there's no real reason to show this because the completion criteria says needs to be controllable by the player, needs to be visible to the player, define a base avatar for all future, which for sake of this demonstration, for sake of this demonstration, we will go ahead and just go to the EXE again, power it up, and as an avatar, I want to exist so that I can represent any character in the game. Needs to be controllable by the player. I'm the player. Hello, how are you doing? Pressing buttons, and he's moving. There you go. And it is visible to me because I can see what he's doing. And define a base avatar for all future characters. So I believe that completion criteria was met. Now, it has been my pleasure and honor to show you everything that I've worked on for this review. And here comes our next speaker.
Hi, my name is Dawson Majors, and I am from Team Ragamuffin. My first user story is, as the player, I would like to have a set amount of health so that I cannot live forever. To best demonstrate this, I will go through the completion criteria of this user story. The first piece of completion criteria is it needs to drop in value when attacked by an enemy.
Hey, you.
Here's the enemy avatar, and I take damage whenever they hit me. My second piece of completion criteria for this is it needs to drop in value whenever it's hit by a hazard. So my third piece of completion criteria is the player dies once the health value reaches or goes below 0. I'm at 2 out of 96 health right now. If I step back up on this hazard again and get hit by the spikes, I die. My fourth piece of completion criteria for this is it needs a sound for when the player takes damage. Whenever the player takes damage at all, it makes that sound, as I just showed there. My fifth piece of completion criteria is it needs a visual effect for whenever the player takes damage. Whenever the player takes damage, it plays that animation and does that stagger. The final piece of completion criteria is it plays a death animation once the health value reaches or goes below 0. So when you see there it goes below 0 out of 96, the player dies and does a death animation. My next issue or user story is, as an enemy avatar, I want a health pool so I can be defeated by the player avatar. The first piece of completion criteria is it needs to drop in value when attacked by the player.
Hey, you. Face.
Their health drops whenever I attack them. The second piece of completion criteria is has a visual health bar above the enemy avatar. So whenever I attack them, they have a health bar whenever I attack them and do damage. The third piece of completion criteria is the health bar is only visible after taking damage.
Hey,
I go here and I do damage to them. It's only visible whenever they take damage. The fourth piece of completion criteria is the health bar turns invisible after a short amount of time.
Hey, you. With the face.
So whenever I attack them, the health bar should pop up, and after a short bit, it turns invisible. The final piece of completion criteria is it plays a death animation when the HP value reaches 0. Plays that death animation whenever they reaches 0. My next user story is, as a hazard, I would like to activate when the player steps on me so that I may attempt to damage the player in hopes of killing them. To go through this, I'll go through the completion criteria. The first piece of completion criteria is the trap does damage to the player. As you see, it went from 96 to 32 whenever the trap did damage to the player. The second completion criteria is the trap has a short delay before it springs up. The second piece of completion criteria is the trap has a short delay before it springs up. Short delay before it springs up. The third piece of completion criteria is the trap is activated when the player steps on it. As you see, it's activated there whenever it was stepped on. The fourth piece of completion criteria is the player has enough time to run through the trap before it springs up. So, had enough time to completely run through it before it even clicked up and sprang up. The next piece of completion criteria is that it needs a visual effect for when the player takes damage from the spikes. The player does an animation and has a visual effect whenever they take damage from the spikes. The next piece of completion criteria is sound effect of the player taking damage when it's hit by the spikes. See here? They make a sound effect whenever they're hit by the spikes. The next completion criteria after that is a visual effect for the spike tile going down when the player steps on it. You can see here, whenever I step on it, the spike tile goes down. The next completion criteria after that is a sound effect for when the player steps on the spike tile. So, step on it, hear it go down, and then click into place. The final piece of completion criteria is a sound effect for when the spike plays up after a delay. My last and final story is, as the player, I would like to eat some food so that I can replenish my health from battle. The first piece of completion criteria for that is it's only able to interact with the player only. So if I walk over here and go over this, is only able to interact with me. My second piece of completion criteria is it needs a sound effect for when it's picked up. And to go on top of that one, after that completion criteria, it also needs a visual effect for when it's picked up. So if I walk over to this one, it will play a sound effect and a visual effect whenever it heals the player. The final completion criteria is it needs to disappear after being picked up. And as you can see, whenever I walked over them and picked them up, it disappeared, and they disappeared and kind of destroyed the actor after they were picked up.
Hello, my name is Stephen Fedor, and we're going to be going over our stories as well as our completion criterias. So to do that, I'm going to open up our build. Our first story is as a locked door. I would like to activate when player gives me a key so that I can unlock a new path for the player to traverse. So I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to grab a key. It shows that I have a key. I'm going to go to the locked door up here and unlock the door. Now I can run around and not have to worry about the door blocking my path anymore. So the completion criteria, it needs to interact with the player only. So we'll restart that. Which you can see on here. We can put keys in our inventory and showcase that the door only reacts to the player. The next one is for needs a sound effect for unlocking. So we'll restart that. So I'm going to demonstrate with another key so you can see that I have a key. It's going to showcase the noise. It had a noise for unlocking. The next one is for needs a sound effect for being locked. So we'll restart that. You can see it says, nope, sorry, you need a key, or to find a key. The next is needs to know if the player has any keys, which you can see that I have 0 keys, saying that it has no. And if I have a key, which you can see on that I have another key, it reacts to the door itself. The next is needs an open animation. So we'll restart that. Simulate the key grab. We have a key. And the door opens. The next, it says needs to display a message if the player doesn't have a key. So we'll restart one more time. And as you can see, it says, nope, sorry, you need to find a key. No matter what key input I push, you will not be able to get past this door. So that completes our first. And now we're going to go to the next one, which is as a valve door, I would like to close behind the player after the player passes a predetermined threshold to force the player into an enemy encounter. So we're going to walk over here. You can see
Hey, you with the face.
that the door closes and blocks my path, so I cannot no longer get past it. And then there is an enemy, so I'm trapped with enemies. Next, it says needs a static mesh for the door, which you can see right here has a static mesh. Needs an animation to showing it to be opening. To do that, I need to kill this enemy. And the spawner up here, because the spawner counts as an enemy.
Oh, not cool.
After that, the door will open. And it will no longer open no matter which way I come from. Next is needs an animation of it closing. So I'm going to restart. So we're going over here. And you can see that the door is closing. Next, it says it needs a sound effect. And we can do this one as well. It needs a visual effect, particle effect. So I'm going to defeat this enemy. And the spawner.
Oh, not cool.
And you can see that it does close, has a sound, and it has a smoke particle effect. And the last one is as a valve door, I want to know if the player passes me, so then I can lock into a confrontation with the room I just entered.
Hey, you.
So I pass, it closes, and now I cannot leave. So that completes this story. And now the next one. As a kill counter door, I want to keep track of the number of enemies that are still alive so that I can open when they have been all defeated by the player. So I just died. So the door closes,
Hey, you.
and you can see that there are enemies still on here in the level, and I cannot pass it. until I defeat them. So I'm gonna fight this guy. Defeat the spawner,
Oh, not cool.
and the door opens. Next, I needs a door static mesh. Which you can see once it comes up that there is a door static mesh. Needs an opening door animation. I'm gonna let this guy kill me real quick. Actually, it'd be quicker this way.
Hey, you with the face.
Door closes behind me, so there is a static mesh. The next one needs a sound effect when opening. So I need to kill this guy. And the spawner.
Oh, not cool.
And it opens, and you can hear it. It needs a sound effect when the door unlocks, which you heard as well. And it needs a visual effect when it opens. So I'm just going to go over it one more time to demonstrate those two. So you go over it,
Hey, you with the face.
kill the enemy, kill the spawner,
Oh, not cool.
and the door opens with sound, particle effect, and everything that is required. Thank you for watching, and now I'm going to pass it off to Lucas. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lucas Guevara. As a destructible crate, I want to be destroyed by the player, then I can release the treasures that I hold. The completion criteria for this issue are as follows. Needs to be able to interact with the player, attack only. Needs a sound effect after being hit. Needs a visual effect for breaking. Needs to disappear after being destroyed. Needs a sound effect for dropping gold. Needs a sound effect for dropping a potion. As a destructible crate, I want to drop gold so that the player can collect it. As a destructible crate, I want to drop a potion so that the player may collect it. As a destructible vase, I want to be destroyed by the player, then I can release the treasures that I hold. The completion criteria for this issue are as follows. Needs to be able to interact with the player's attack only. Needs a sound effect after being hit. Needs a visual effect for breaking. Needs to disappear after being destroyed. Needs a sound effect for dropping gold. Needs a sound effect for dropping a potion. As a destructible crate, I want to drop gold so that the player may collect it. As a destructible vase, I want to drop gold so that the player may collect it. As a destructible vase, I want to drop a potion so that the player may collect it. As a destructible door, I want to block the player so they cannot proceed to the next area. The completion criteria for this issue are as follows. Needs to be able to interact with the player's attack only. Needs a sound effect after being hit. Needs a visual effect for breaking. Needs to disappear after being destroyed. Needs to block the player from passing through.
Hey, you with the face.
As an enemy avatar, I want to be able to attack the player avatar so that I can damage the player. The completion criteria for this issue are as follows. The enemy attacks the player when close. Attack animation. Attack sound effect. Attack visual effect. Produce damage. As the enemy avatar basic attack, if any player avatars are within the attack area, I want to apply damage to them.
Hey everybody, my name is Isabel Wilson, and I'm part of Team Ragamuffin. For our milestone 1, I was in charge of collectibles such as gold, the potion, and keys, and some of the gameplay frameworks such as the main menu, the main options menu, and the credits. So let's get into it. For my first user story, I had gold, so it reads, as gold, I want to be collected by the player, and then they can have a stockpile. So to test this, I'm actually going to go over here into our end level for our level metrics through this little portal. And this right here is the gold. As you can see, I can pick it up, I can interact with it, and it's being accumulated down in the bottom in the player HUD. For the gold completion criteria, I have needs to be able to interact with the player only. As you can see, I'm able to interact with it. And right now we don't have any enemies in this level, so I can't get them to come over and prove that they don't. Needs to have a static mesh. So you can see that these have static meshes, and you can see that they're spinning around and they get destroyed whenever I walk over it. There's a sound effect for pickup. If you can hear, there's a little ching sound that happens whenever I walk over it. There's a visual effect for pickup. So there's some little gold confettiing into the sky whenever I walk over it. And lastly, it needs to disappear after being picked up. So as you can see, there are no more gold to be found right here because I have picked all of them up. The next user story I have is, as a key, I would like to be picked up by the player so I can unlock doors so the player can continue traversing the level. As you can see here, I can't get through that door because I need a key. And right here is our key mesh, so if I walk over here, I pick it up, I should be able to go through it. Now for the sake of being able to see the completion criteria, I have reloaded the end level. So for the first completion criteria, I have needs to interact with the player only. And just like the gold, I don't have a way of showing that we can only interact with the player, so our second completion criteria is that it needs a static mesh, so the player can see me, and as you can see, I represented the key by a little rotating gem. It needs a sound effect when the player picks me up. As you can hear, there's a little ringing sound whenever you pick up the key. And you can also see that there was a visual effect for the pickup, which is my last completion criteria. And now I can get through this door. carefully avoiding the hazard. And now I can access this next area here. My next user story is, as a potion, I want to be collected by the player, then I can be placed into their inventory. And as you can see in the player HUD at the bottom on the left side, there's a couple little orbs that are kind of darkened right now. As soon as I walk over here, I pick one up, it goes into my inventory. And that's a small overview of the potion. For my completion criteria, I have needs to be able to interact with the player only. I can interact with it. It needs a static mesh, and I chose to use this little star as the static mesh representative for the potion. It needs a sound effect for the pickup. So here, you can hear a little glug. I'll go over here to pick up this last one. It needs a visual effect for pickup, and similarly to the key, it has a little white confetti that goes off. Little celebration. And as you can see clearly, it needs to disappear after being picked up. And there are no more potions to be picked up around here. So that one proves itself. Now, for my other user stories, I'm going to navigate back to the main menu because these have to do with the gameplay framework. My next user story is, as a main menu, I would like to exist to help control the game. As we can see here, we have our main menu. If I were to start the game, press escape to access the pause menu, quit game again, yes I'm sure, I will go back to the main menu, ready for my other options. For my completion criteria, it needs to have the option to start the game. As you can see here, when I click this, we can start the game. You navigate back. For my next completion criteria, needs to have the option to open the options menu. Here we have our options menu. When you click it, you can access the options, and we can go back. The next completion criteria needs to have the option to open the credits menu. Here's our credits menu that showcases all of our designers and the music and sound effects that were used in our game as references, our visual effects, images and icons, animations, and any YouTube tutorials we might have referenced. Lastly, it needs to have the option to quit the game. Here you can see quit game, and this will bring me back to my desktop, where I can access Perforce and open up the file once more. Okay. My next user story is, as an options menu, I would like to exist so I can allow the player to adjust the audio settings. As you saw before, we kind of adjusted things here and there just without showcasing the user story, but these adjust the music volume and this adjusts the sound effects volume, and you can see that here. You can kind of hear whenever I hover over it. If I set it to 0, there is no more sound effect. For my completion criteria, I needs to be able to control the sound effects level, as we just showcased. This is in working condition. Needs to be able to control the music sound level. Again, as I just showcased, this is at max volume, and this is at 0 volume, which actually pauses the sound, and it restarts it again here when you turn it back on. It needs to be accessible from the main menu. As we can see here, here's our main menu. When you go over to options, we can access our options menu. And as we showcased before, it needs to be able to save and sync the settings whenever entering a new level. So let's adjust it to some random settings here. Let's have sound effects at blast and music down at the lowest. Start game.
Oh, yeah.
You can hear our sound effects are loud and clear, and our music is not really to be heard, and the setting values have saved. So let's go back to the main menu. Okay. Lastly, we have, as a credits menu, I want to exist so that the player can view everyone responsible for making the game happen. So let's access the credits menu real quick. As I previously showcased, I kind of went through everything that's included in our credits menu, but it's all saved within the main menu. So the completion criteria needs to be accessible from the main menu. As I just showed you, you can go over here to the credits button, click it, and you can access all of the credits via a scroll box. Next, it needs to give credit to the team. As you can see right here, we have all of our team members showcased and what they contributed to this milestone, and only this one. And lastly, it needs to give credit to any references used for creating the game. At first, we were just going to include the music and sound effects, and then we realized we probably need to include all of it. So we have, like I said, our music, all of our sound effects, which I'm not going to get into because there are so many. Visual effects that we used, any Niagara systems, and particles. Our images and icons, so our background image here, and everything else. Animations, and any YouTube tutorials we might have referenced when we were unsure on how to do certain things. So, and of course, the official references can be seen as APA citations in our Confluence. Okay, and that about wraps up what I contributed to Team Ragamuffin's Milestone 1. Now I'm going to pass it off to Nick Jackson.
Hey Izzy, thank you for that rundown of all of your issues you worked on. My name is Nicholas Jackson, and I'm going to be showing you the issues that I worked on for our sprint. We're going to be opening our ragamuffin_capstone.exe here, which is our latest build, which is under change list 955832. So let's double click that real quick. All right, so this is opened up. You can see we're in our main menu here. I'm gonna start by just turning these down just a smidge, make it a little easier to hear. All right, so let's go ahead and go by clicking start game. All right, so the first issue I'm going to talk about today is going to be RG48. So as the player, I would like to have a set amount of lives so that I cannot continue through the level indefinitely. All right, so let's kind of show how that works. So if you look in the top right, as I run over to find a little trap here to be able to damage my player, if you look at that top right, we have lives. It's tracking 0, 1. All right, so you have a set amount of lives. All right, so I ran through some spikes. Now I've died. My lives have reset to 0. I'm gonna just continue real quick. All right, dash over. All right, build. There we go. All right, and then I died. So now this is showing, all right, I'm out of lives. I have to go back to the main menu. So that is demonstrating that as the player, I cannot continue because I have a set amount of lives. And once I run out of lives, I have to restart from the menu. So for my first completion criteria, needs to drop in value on the player HUD when the player dies. So you can see up above, lives is at 0, 1 right now. So I have 1 life. So we're gonna run around, get by our trap here. All right, the trap has killed me. You can see it does decrease on the HUD right up here, where this went from 1 to now 0. So I'm gonna go ahead and show that that completion criteria is complete. So my next completion criteria needs to allow the player to revive while they have more than 0 lives before their death. All right, so let's go ahead and let's start fresh. So if I head over here, our little trap, we're going to run over this. So as you can see, I started out with 1 life, and then once I die, it'll drop me to 0. But since I had 1 life before I got the 0, I get this chance here to click and try it again. So let's go ahead and head back over. So as you can see, I still have 0 lives. All right. All right, so now I've died, and this is not gonna let me continue. So I have to come back here and start all over. So that would complete that completion criteria. So that way, once the player runs out of lives and they die again, it's game over. So for my next issue, I'm going to showcase is RG46. So as a player HUD, I would like to exist so that I can provide crucial information for the player. Alright, so our crucial information for the player is going to be how many lives they have, and we're also going to be tracking their gold that they pick up, the keys, so that's crucial for the player because they need to know if they have a key or not to be able to open certain doorways, their health, which will then let the player know how much health they have left, if they need to try and look around for some food to heal, and it will also keep track on if they can use their dash ability or not. So that's important. So if you're trying to run away or get away from something, you got this little dash that'll boost you. And then the other thing is it tracks your potions. So if we go take a quick look at the health, we're gonna go back to our favorite little hazard here. You're gonna see my 96 health, I just went down to 32 from getting hit by a couple spikes when I was standing over that. So that's tracking my health currently. Next thing we're gonna do, let's go eat some turkey real quick. And I'm gonna need a little ham, try to get our health as good as possible. That gets our health up for us. Our next item that we're going to show is our BP pickup. So it shows, you know, my keys there. I'm at 0, so show me now I got 1, so I know I can open up a door if it requires a key. Next here is a potion. So as you see that a little potion popped up on our HUD for us, keeping track. Here and see if we can get, there we go. So there we got some gold. So this gold here, once we pick it up, you'll notice on my HUD it'll show the player picked up some gold. That way we're keeping track of everything. So let's go ahead and show, you know, it's tracking my lives. Alright, so I went from 1 to 0. Alright, let's take a look at our complete criteria for this story. So, needs to display and track the player's health component showing its current and maximum amounts. Alright, so as you can see, we have 96 out of 96. So 96 is our maximum HP. And then the first 96 is our current. So if I take damage real quick, oh, you'll see my health went down and I just died. So go back over here. Alright, so you see now I got 32 HP. So that's tracking my HP, showcasing it on the screen for the player. Then we go over here, so we want to track our current and maximum. So our current's now 32, but if I were to heal, you can see it went up to 64. Now it's up to 80. So that is showing that it's tracking my health for the player. So our next completion criteria that we're looking at is needs to display and track the player's current amount of gold. So let's go ahead and destroy one of these. All right, so this one drops some gold for us. Let's go ahead and pick up that gold. As you can see, we went from 0 to 153 gold. That is showing that it's tracking my player's current amount of gold. Our next completion criteria is needs to display and track the player's current amount of lives. So let's go ahead and do a quick restart here. So currently I have 1 lives right now. So it's showing lives in that top right. All right. And let's go ahead and die. And now you see we have 0. That way it's tracking my current amount of lives. That is completed. So our next completion criteria is it needs to display and track the player's current amount of potion. So as you can see to the left of my health bar here, I have 5 little potion vials. So that is going to be where it tracks our potion. So if I come down here to pick up a potion, you see I now have 1 potion. 4 more slots available. And so that shows it's tracking my potion. For our next completion criteria, needs to display and track the player's current amount of keys. So as you can see, I currently have 0 keys. And then here's a key right here for me to pick up. So let's go ahead and pick that up, and you can see now it holds 1 key. So it's updating whenever I pick up the keys, and then that would show that completion criteria has been met. The next and final completion criteria is needs to display when the player's dash ability is available. So if you look at my dash, I can press the space bar and it will bring up the dash ability. I can just tap it, or I can push and hold, and you get this little arrow showing your direction. So when I dash, you see it's changed to red. So if I'm hitting space bar, I'm matching right now, it's not going to pop up. But once the cooldown is done, you see it's changed back to its normal color, and I can then dash again. That lets the player know, hey, my dash ability is ready. So that was the final completion criteria for RG46, the player HUD. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next completion, or our next story, which is going to be as a pause menu. I want to exist so the player may pause or end the game and access the option. So in the top left, we have a little menu here where if we press escape, it pauses the game. So there's no more audio really going on. There's no more movement, like I can't move. So if we go over here, let's see. So we got this enemy here. He's coming after me. I've paused it. You can see he's no longer moving. So the game has officially paused. I have continue, which would allow me to continue back in. I also have an options access, so I can access the options. And I have my quit game, so I can quit the game and go back to the main menu. So for the first completion criteria, it needs to be accessible by the player's input. So if I hit any other key on this keyboard, we're not going to be getting that option menu. But when and only when I press the escape key, you'll notice that this escape will turn red, indicating that you have pressed the proper key. So it is accessible by the player's input, so that is the only way to pull it up. There's no way for me to like mouse up there and do it. The game's not just going to pause automatically. It has to be when I push the escape key. So like I can click up here all I want, not going to happen. So our next completion criteria, it needs to pause the game world. So if we go over to our enemies over here,
Hey, you with the face.
see this, I'm in mid-run. If I hit escape, you'll notice this door that was starting to pop up, this little valve door, it has stopped moving. The enemy has also stopped moving, and I have stopped in my mid-run. Nothing can move or act right now because everything is locked, right? It's all paused. All right, so that would show the completion criteria that needs to pause the game world. Next completion criteria is needs to have the option to continue. So I have this option to continue here. So when I click this, it lets me know, hey, I can keep going back in, and then I'm gonna, I can keep fighting these bad guys here, right? So that is showing that the continue will unfreeze the game. All right, our next completion criteria is needs to have the option to quit back to the main menu. That's where our quit game button comes in. So as you notice, I can click on here and it'll ask me if I'm sure or not. If I'm not and I want to keep playing, I can, but if I do want to, I can quit. It takes me back to the main menu right here. So that completion criteria is complete. So my next completion criteria is needs to allow access to the option menu to adjust audio settings. All right, so in here, right off the bat, I'm gonna press escape. And now this right here, this option, I'm gonna click on it. And now you can see, I'm gonna turn up, say I turn up the music, and I even turn up the sound effects. They're gonna get a little bit, they're gonna get louder. If I turn the sound effects all the way down, you're not going to hear this hovering noise anymore. You won't hear the clicks, but now you'll hear the music. So the music is going to be a little louder. I can do the reverse if I wanted, turn it off and just turn sound effects up. All I want is sound effects. I don't want that ambient noise. All right, so you can hear the player like running around. And that is showcasing being able to adjust the volume. All right. And so that shows that it allows access to the option menu to adjust the audio settings. So our final thing to kind of show is all of our settings, everything that we have in our game will also transfer and work between levels. So if I go through our little portal here, you'll see it's taking me to a new level. See, I'm picking up gold, so all that's tracking. There's a key there. Got these little destructible box. Grab this other key. I got some spikes. The door's opening because I had a key there. Let's take some damage, heal up, and break that. Dash over here. Let's pause. Adjust our settings here. All right, and this is our win point for completing the game. We have our message playing, and then we can click here and it'll take us right back to our start menu. And that is going to showcase our completion criteria for making sure that our game stuff works from the mechanics level into a little end game level, which then completes the game cycle. So this has been fun, and this is Team Ragamuffins, Nicholas Jackson, sign off, and thank you for watching.